With countries like Saudi Arabia and China building more and more things every day, there are numerous megaprojects currently under construction in the world. But sometimes billion-dollar projects end up being useless and abandoned. From a fort left in the middle of the sea to the world's tallest building, on this episode of Built a Billion, we present to you the most useless megaprojects ever completed, Part 3. And stay till the end of the video to see the most useless of them all. If you love to hear about all the mega projects of the world, subscribe to the channel and help us reach our goal of 1,000 subscribers. It'll really help the channel out. Transit elevated bus. The idea of an elevated bus derived from two architects in 1969, but it wasn't until 2010 when China decided to make that idea a reality. The Transit Elevated Bus, or TEB, was designed to be the bus of the future and would travel on a track above the crowded traffic, ideally saving time. In 2016, a scale model was built to show how efficient the TEB would be. The bus would be the width of 2 traffic lanes, be 15 feet tall, and would travel a fixed route powered by electrical lines. The bus would reach speeds of up to 27 miles per hour. It sounded good in theory, holding 300 people at one time and running emissions-free, but it proved to be too expensive and ambitious. The prototype was scrapped in 2017, but maybe one day we'll SEE the TEB. Sorry. Lavasa India. Back before the turn of the new millennium, the term smart city was catching steam. The city of Lavasa in India was designed by an Indian multimillionaire who wished to take an empty piece of land and put a few thousand properties on it. It was maybe a bit too ambitious and would soon become another useless mega project. The smart city was built in the style of Portofino, Italy, and even had an amusement park for good measure. But in a very genius move, Lavasa wasn't near any major commercial routes. So this meant, obviously, no one was coming. The project, designed to hold 250,000 people, cost a disrespectful amount of money, mostly paid for by the government and public debt, and by the end of 2018, only 10,000 people lived there. All the investors and the company that built the city went bankrupt, and the city was left in a state of disrepair. American Meadowlands. In the US, the mall is a dying concept, and the American Meadowlands is the picture-perfect example. The project was proposed in 2003, with construction starting in 2004, and was set to open in 4 stages from 2019 to 2020. Yes, the mall opened right when the world stopped. But the problem started way before that. The location of this huge mall with theme parks in New Jersey's Meadowlands sparked concern for being a traffic nightmare. The Giants football team even sued the company and argued that the construction would make traffic on game days unmanageable. Also, the mall's developer had to pay off $300 million in debt. Now you have a mega project that single-handedly wasted money and made traffic worse, and no one even asked for it. Fort Boyard. Don't adjust your YouTube screens. That is not a giant bathtub in the middle of the ocean. That's Fort Boyard, located off the western coast of France, and is almost 200 years old. First conceived way back in 1660, it was scrapped by Louis XIV's engineer, only to be picked up again by Napoleon in 1804. Workers dumped 75,000 cubic meters of rock onto the sea floor, but everything came to a halt when the British attacked in 1809. Construction completed in 1857 under Louis Philippe, and it was capable of holding 250 soldiers and 74 guns. But due to weapon advancements, Fort Boyard was deemed obsolete as soon as it was built, which led to it being the location of a French game show. Ouch. The Burj Khalifa. Dubai holds the tallest building in the world, but when you look at what it costs to make it, it may make you understand why we have it on a list of useless megaprojects. The tower cost $1.5 billion to create, and 12,000 migrants from Southeast Asia were brought in to build it. They made less than $10 per day and worked under terrible and unsafe conditions. Their passports were even confiscated so that if they did quit, they'd be trapped in a foreign country. Human rights investigations revealed that many died from heat exhaustion, overworking, suicide, and one man even fell to his death in 2007. The powers that be will cover that up with claims of how environmentally friendly the building is. But the building uses 250,000 gallons of water and burns through the equivalent of 50,100 watt light bulbs a day. The building can last a century, but the Empire State Building in New York can stand for another 7,000 years. Pair that with the country's 20% poverty rate, and you're looking at a complete waste of time, resources, and life. Interstate H3 Highway. The H3 Highway cuts through the island of Oahu, saving commuters time, but it sure didn't save a lot of money and proved to be a headache, especially for locals in the region. The highway was proposed in the 1960s, and the native Hawaiian population immediately opposed it due to the potential environmental damage it would cause. On a cost per mile basis, it's the most expensive highway megaproject ever, at $1.3 billion, which is the equivalent of $2 billion today. The highway didn't start construction until the 80s and finally opened in 1997, with locals still opposed today. Many people still refuse to even use it because, as the indigenous people will tell you, it's full of bad mojo. India Twin Towers. The Noida is a planned city in India's capital region, just southeast of New Delhi. The region is now among the richest in the country and is classified as a special economic zone. In this zone is a residential complex called Emerald Court, where our story begins. Construction started on Emerald Court in 2005 with the ultimate goal of 14 9-story towers in total. But the plans changed once the residents started to move in. Now there would be 15 11-story buildings and 2 towers that would rise way above the rest of the other buildings, and they were called the Apex and Cyan Towers. These are a pair of high-rise buildings that were planned to be the new centerpiece of Emerald Court. There would be a clubhouse, gym, swimming pool, and even a track. Both towers would have 40 floors and overlook New Delhi and Noida. The site was supposed to hold a shopping complex and green area, but the residents quickly noticed what looked like buildings being built on top of what was promised to them. They were furious, and so it ended up in High Court, which sided with the residents and ordered the demolition of the buildings. The buildings violated the National Building Code that required residential towers be 16 meters apart. These towers were 9 meters from the rest of Emerald Court. The decision was taken to the Supreme Court, and after 9 years, the ruling was upheld, and the demolition of the Noida Twin Towers was now official. In August of 2022, after 10 seconds and 3,700 kilograms of explosives were placed, the 100-meter towers imploded. And this was the tallest structure ever voluntarily demolished. What do you think about these useless megaprojects? Do you think they could find a use in the future? Let me know in the comments below. The previous entry in this series should be on the screen, so click that video on the screen to watch something you haven't seen. And thanks for visiting Built a Billion.